The ocean caught him hard. Salt burned Yolan Pierce's throat as the world flipped sky. Hull foamed, then darkness pressed in like a fist. The handcuffs chewed his wrists. He forced himself not to kick wild. Panic his chummed side turn, long exhale. Show your side, not your belly. Make yourself bigger, slower, he told himself, the voice of training returning like muscle memory. Above, the police boat's engine throbbed. Behind, something vast curved through the light. A fin, another, and another, carving arcs like ink strokes. He counted 1, 2, 3. Don't splash, Pierce, he whispered into bubbles. Make them curious, not hungry. Hey! He angled down, searching the gloom. A shadowed rectangle drifted below an old crab pot frame, furred with barnacles. If he could grind the steel cuffs across the shell, he might shear the metal tooth by tooth. He descended, ears popping, lungs begging. The frame was slick, razored with calcified edges. He hooked the chain and saw grrrk gurk. A fin slid closer. A pale belly rolled, then veered, as if the animal had smelled his iron in indecision and lost interest. The chain's first link brightened under pressure. Keep rhythm, he thought. Long pull, slow pull, gurk, snap. Freedom scorched his wrists. He kicked up, breaking the surface with a careful hiss, not a gasp. The boat had arced away, shrinking to a white smudge.
Oh my.
No voices now. Just wind, the slap of chop, the tick of gulls. Jay Len stripped his overshirt, knotted the sleeves, and blew air into the chest to make a crude buoy. He rolled onto his side and began a survival stroke toward the faintest suggestion of a channel marker, 2 blinks of green on the horizon that could have been memory. Pierce. The shout came thin across the water from the boat, mocking. The lead cop rock havercupped his hands like a megaphone. You swim, hero? Tell your little bloggers how that water tastes. Yolan didn't answer. Words cost air. He slid the improvised float under his chin and counted strokes. 10. Breathe. 10. Breathe. Somewhere beneath, a body moved, heavy, unhurried, the old kings of this coast gliding their patrol. Minutes crawled into a private forever. Then fate bobbed up in front of him. A white cooler, sun-bleached, lid cracked. He hooked it with his elbow and flipped it open. Melted ice, an empty bottle. And at the bottom, a dead phone inside a waterproof case with a faint. Blinking emergency beacon still alive, Jalen laughed once, a dry bark the sea stole. He tethered the beacon strap to his belt. Okay, he said to no one. Find me. He rolled to breathe and saw clouds stacking like anvils. The wind freshened, cool and mean, roughening the skin of the water. The marker, it was a marker, blinked again and went out. A small skiff chugged along the inside of his skull. Hold energy. Let the current work. Angle. Don't fight everything. He trimmed his kicks and let the wind compress his course toward where the harbor must be. Trusting old maps etched in marrow, a fin surfaced 10 feet off his shoulder and held there. Traveling his speed, escorting or assessing. Yolan kept his face still in the water and spoke into the thin space between fear and focus. Not prey, he murmured. Just passing through. Lightning stitched a faraway seam. Lifted his head and for a heartbeat, saw a green flash of channel light winking through haze like an eye. That's the way he stroked. He didn't think about the men on the boat or the file folder in his kitchen labeled harbor receipts. Not yet. He thought about breath and pattern, and a sentence he owed to every kid who'd ever taken his free swim class under the cracked pool lights on 41st Street. You don't have to be fearless, he'd tell them. You just have to be trained. A swell lifted him, set him down. The beacon pulsed red against his hip. Hold on, he said. A gull wheeled and screamed a sound like a siren in reverse, and that's where we start. He turned to camera, in your audience's imagination, the floating narrator voice returning. Family, welcome back to the channel where truth refuses to drown. Where are you watching from today? Drop your city in the comments. This fight has you locked in already. Tap subscribe, your support keeps these justice stories alive. The wind shifted colder. Sea tilted. Zhao lowered his face and swam toward the light. Gives next how the beacon ping. A stranger's drone, and a storm turned survival into proof. The sky blinked green, then grained. The wind found its teeth. Yaloon cinched the beacon strap through his belt loops and slid the bleached cooler beneath his ribs to rest his chest. He let the current lift him, not fight him, counting a slow rhythm 10 strokes turn. 10 strokes breathe. Efficiency, not heroics. The ocean rewards quiet math. Another fin paralleled him at a patient distance. Most people see triangles and think attack. Yulan read body language. No stutter kicks, no sudden angles, no stiff pectorals. Curious, not keyed. It kept his profile narrow and his heart ledgered under control. A swell humped under him, lowering the horizon. When it set him down, the green channel light winked again, closer now. Or maybe the air had simply cleared for a beat between gusts. He adjusted his heading a few degrees right, letting the wind shear push him diagonally toward it like a ferrying crab. "Hold shape," he whispered, breath feathering the surface. "You're a log, not lunch." He could taste metal in the back of his throat. The handcuff cuts had opened more from the grind. Each kick sent a ribbon of warmth across his palms that the sea immediately erased. If the Sharks wanted that story, they weren't taking it today. Its closest one banked, showed a pale flash, then bled away into darker water. Bored by a meal that refused to panic, a yacht wake arrived late from some invisible party boat. Steep, little pyramids that slapped his face and tipped the cooler. He rolled with them, moving like a hinge rather than a flag. The beacon pulsed a stubborn red against his hip. Tiny heartbeat in a huge body. Thunder thumbed the horizon. The first scatter of rain came needle-fine, then harder warm at first, then cold. The surface changed texture, a million dimples pocking the skin. Storm logic? Don't sprint, don't stop. Let the gusts give you a free half knot. Keep your line simple. He filled the overshirt buoy again, topped it, and tucked his chin. The police boat was gone. Not even an engine ghost. That was good. The worst danger now wasn't a human decision. It was the weather's. Memory tried to pry its way in. The folder in his kitchen marked harbor receipts, the email thread from a fake citizens group that was really a cop's burner, the promise you'll sleep with the fish you'll love so much. He pushed the archive back into the cabinet of later. Right now was breath kick, glide, lightning intricate as cracked porcelain ran along a distant cloud shelf. The delay to thunder said the line was still miles off, but closing. He angled again, aiming not at the channel marker itself, but where the shoal made a lie, a place the chop might soften. Training wrapped around him like an old wetsuit. Reduce exposure, multiply options. He scanned for anything floatable in the heave foam blocks. Driftwood, a stray fender. The cooler thunked a hidden lump of dead swollen pelican. He murmured an apology and pushed past. The smell of crude rose with the rain, faint and wrong like pennies and heating oil. It wasn't his imagination. He'd measured it in spreadsheets. The fish had tasted it for months. That's why the Sharks wandered strange lines. Today dumping had bent their habits. The green light slid behind a rain curtain and vanished. For a few heartbeats, the world shrank to water in front of his lips and the drum of rain on his skull. He reset his heading to faith and kept his cadence. Another swell lifted him higher. This time he saw it properly. A steel channel post 50 yards off, shouldering waves, its ladder rungs furred with mussels, its light hooded and sulking. He laughed again, this time softer. There you are. The wind freshened to a steady shove, helpful but mean. He tucked the cooler under one arm and sprinted in short economy bursts, stopping just shy of burn, calculating micro-recovery so he wouldn't redline. 10 yards. 20. A wave swung him sideways, and he corrected with a scissor kick. Fingers grazing iron, barnacles bit his fingertips. He lunged and locked an elbow around the lowest rung. "Got you," said between teeth. He cinched the beacon strap through the ladder rung until the red pulse faced seaward. Elevated above the chop, the post vibrated with every slap of water, a tuning fork in a storm symphony. He pressed his cheek against the cold metal and let his legs trail in the scud, catching breath in shallow sips. Lightning stepped closer. The air around the post thrummed a warning that this perch could become a lightning rod. He'd have to move soon, time the jump between flashes, keep low in the troughs, ride the lie. But give the beacon 2 minutes at height. Let it shout into the weather. He closed his eyes and counted. 1, Mississippi. 2. On 30, the rain slackened just enough for sound to travel. Somewhere through the gray, a faint mechanical hum stitched the wind. It's too small for a helicopter, too even for a squalling insect with a camera. Yulan lifted his head. Squinting, the post shuddered. Water boomed around the base, and behind him, closer than before, a dark shape rose out of the green, lifting water with it like a curtain. The shape rose like a rumor and broke into certainty, a great white breaching in a slow, indifferent arc. Its back flashed slate and scars. Its mouth didn't open. It crashed down in a cathedral of spray and vanished, leaving only the roll of displaced water to thump Yalin against the ladder. Not today, he breathed. fingers biting barnacle to stay anchored. The hum stitched the rain again closer. Yalan tilted his head. A quadcopter slid out of the gray, nose light blinking, rotors shouldering the drizzle. It hovered, steadied and tilted as if squinting. He lifted a hand and traced a slow wave, miles inland, in a garage that smelled like solder and citrus cleaner. Kayla Nosu, 17, stared at a tablet. She'd sent her mapping drone along the channel to practice shoreline surveys for her senior project. Instead, the feed framed a man cuff-scarred and bleeding, lashed to a steel post with a blinking beacon. "Mom," she yelled, throat suddenly dry. "Call the marina desk. Tell them there's a man on the mid-channel aid, possible eyes mob beacon." Her mom was already dialing. Kayla hit record and toggled her stream to public. Not out of cloud, out of fear that if anything happened, there would be witnesses besides the water back on the post. Yalan pointed to the beacon and then made the universal helicopter hand sign fingers, chopping the air. The drone nodded in its insect way, rose higher and panned a slow circle. The storm had staggered, gathering its strength on the far flats. In the lull, sound carried, a low diesel thrum from the east, another from the west. The beacon did its job. In the harbor office, a tired dispatcher glanced at the eyes panel, saw a man overboard icon blink alive near the channel light, and punched a number. A salvage tug the Garnet answered first. "We're closest," the skipper said, and threw over his throttle in a different room. With the blinds half closed and a commendation plaque glinting on the wall, SGT. Brock Havar heard the same call over a scanner most cops weren't supposed to have. His mouth thinned. He didn't call it in. He jogged to the dock instead. Jadalin tested his grip. Lightning walked the horizon again, counting out 5. The post hummed, but the air didn't sing like a live wire yet. He could afford 30 more seconds at height. He looked up and spoke to the lens. "Name's Yalan Pierce," he said, voice low so it wouldn't tear. "Former Coast Guard AST, if you can hear me, I didn't fall. I was thrown by officers from Patrol Boat 17B at the channel edge. Time stamp about 30 minutes ago. My house has a folder marked harbor receipts. If I don't make it, publish everything." Kayla swallowed hard. The chat on her stream spiked names she didn't know. Emojis, questions, disbelief. One message cut through. "Harbor office confirmed tug en route." Coast Guard spinning up. The Garnet punched into view first, squat and stubborn, her bow shouldering chop. The skipper eased back as he read the water, then threw a line toward the post. "Hang tight, brother." From the opposite quarter, a police rib boiled out of the rain, blue light strobing weakly in the daylight. At the helm haver, jaw clenched, 2 men behind him in slickers, no siren.
Ow.
Just speed.jll, in single quotes. The tug's rope slapped the swell and skittered by. He let go with one hand, caught the soggy coil on the next pass, and jammed it around a rung with a reef not born of muscle memory. The drone hung between the boats, its lens unblinking. "Easy, Garnet," the skipper called across water. "We've got him." The rib swung wider, cutting between the tug and the post, wash rearing up to smash Jalen's knees. Haver's eyes flicked to the drone, then back to Yalan calculation. Not surprise. Pierce. He barked over the motor. Boat inspection. Step aboard. Yalan locked his elbow, felt the ladder vibrate with the tug's line. He made no move toward the rib. Kayla whispered to her mic, barely breathing. "Everyone, you're seeing this live." The wind freshened. The post moaned. 2 boats, 1 man, 1 camera, and a storm drawing its sleeve back to throw. Yalan lifted his chin. "I'm not going anywhere with you." The tug's crewman heaved the rescue sling. Havar throttled up, and the sky went white. White swallowed the world, then spat it back in hard outlines. Thunder rode the ladder into Jalen's bones. Lines on. The Garnet skipper barked. The tug slipped downwind, keeping light tension on the rope Yalan had hitched to the post. A deckhand held a rescue sling, eyes locked on Yalan. The police ribs slashed across their bow, blue strobe shredding the rain. Haver leaned into the helm, throwing a ridge of wake that slapped Jalen's shins and made the post groan. Kayla's drone steadied overhead, framing the triangle man-tug police boat. Her public stream exploded. "Get him, Coast Guard? Record everything, Pierce," Havar shouted. "Aboard. Now." Yalan kept his elbow jammed through iron. He measured lightning. 1,000, 2, 4, negative, he called, voice flat. "You pushed me. Transfer goes to the tug or Coast Guard. You're live on camera." Haver's eyes flicked to the drone, then to the sling. He pinned the throttle, cutting another wall of wake. The ladder sang. The post shuddered. The tug skipper didn't blink. On my call, he told his deckhand. Wait for the trough. The fin surfaced, rolled, and slipped away. The chat went feral. Kayla whispered, stay with him. Stay steady. Lightning forked closer. Thunder at 3. Storm logic. Don't sprint. Don't freeze. Trim decisions into one breath. Now, the skipper said. The sling arced, landed short, sank, then rose. Yalan let go with one hand, grabbed webbing, worked it up one-handed teeth, shoulder, will. The post bucked. His elbow scraped free. For a heartbeat, he hung from nylon and stubbornness. The rib slewed to slice the line. Kayla's lens caught Haver's profile intent. Deliberate. Garnet answered with a horn blast. The deckhand paid out, then took engine tile as a surgeon. Yalan dragged the sling across his chest, ran the buckle under his arm, and singed. A crosswave tried to peel him. The sling held. Barnacles shredded his shirt, but not his skin. Rigged. He gasped. A second diesel note entered cleaner, higher. The Coast Guard cutter shouldered out of rain, red stripe bright, even in gray. Its loudhailer cracked. Law enforcement rib, standoff. Tug Garnet, maintain. Sir on the ladder, do not jump until instructed. Haver hesitated 1 human second, then threw the wheel to clear their bow. The rib's wash collapsed against the post in a last ugly slap. Copy, sector, the skipper called. We have him in a sling, ready to transfer. The cutter's crew moved like choreography, heaving line. Coxswain reading water, railmon pointing. Kayla lifted for the transfer lane. Her chat steadied into a flood of heart emojis. Timing on me, the Coast Guard coxswain said. When I say green, sling releases. Ladderman rides the trough. We take the load. 3, 2. Green. Garnet eased tension. Yalan kicked free as the trough opened. Body low, sling biting ribs. The heaving line snapped, tight caught. Load on. A Coastian orange leaned far over the foam shoulder, locked an arm around Yolan, and hauled. A final roll tried to throw him wide. Hands grabbed, webbing, sleeves, skin. Pierce aboard, someone said into a radio. Medical up. Haver's rib idled in the periphery, blue light paling. Kayla's drone hovered over the embrace, the sling, the proof. The chat fell quiet, just a river of hearts. Jalen let his head fall back and took his first breath that wasn't a calculation. Hands, voices, towels, then the cutter's steel steadied under Jalen's back. A corpsman cut away the shredded shirt, swabbed salt and blood from his wrists, checked pupils, counted ribs with careful fingers. Name Yolan Pierce allergies. Bad cops. He tried to smile. It came out a cough. The Coast Guard coxswain leaned in. You're safe aboard Sector Cutter Kestrel. We're recording. Tell me what happened. Yalan fixed his eyes on the body cam's red dot. Patrol boat 17B. 3 officers. I was cuffed, transported outside the channel, pushed overboard. Time index roughly 40 minutes prior to pickup. My beacon is affixed to the channel post. Drone overhead recorded interactions. I request this statement be treated as evidence, logged the coxswain said, voice flat, professional. He nodded to the corpsman, who slid a foil blanket over Jalen's shoulders and taped. Butterfly closures over the worst cuts. The cutter's shadow shifted. On the starboard quarter, Haver's rib idled close enough that Yalan could see the tendons in the sergeant's throat. Havar cupped his hands. Sector will take custody of the subject for questioning. The coxswain stepped to the rail, posture turning into paperwork. Negative. This is a maritime medical evacuation and potential felony battery. We'll transport to sector base and coordinate with DA standoff. Haver's smile didn't reach his eyes. You're obstructing. He interfered with an active year vessel identification and crew names for the log. The coxswain interrupted, already holding a clipboard. And kill your blue strobe, this isn't a parade. For a second, the only sound was the cutter's engine breathing. Havar killed the light. The drone hung above them like a second sun. Kayla. Yalan croaked, turning his head toward the little machine. In a garage on the flats, Kayla's hand shook over her tablet. I'm here, she whispered into her mic, even though he couldn't hear. The chat sprinted. We see you, Jalen. Stream mirrored. Lawyers pinged. Her mom squeezed her shoulder and mouthed. Keep rolling, sir, the corpsman said. Tapping Jalen's elbow, we need to flush these cuts. Then warm for? Do it, Yalan said. To the coxswain, please secure the beacon from the post. AI's has my mob flag. And there's a folder in my kitchen, top of the fridge harbor receipts. If something happens en route, we'll get you ashore, the coxswain said, not unkind. Then we'll get your statements on paper. A junior coastie swung a gaff gently, snagged the beacon strap on the ladder, and brought the pulsing red up and over the rail. He bagged it in evidence plastic, sealed, signed, and time-stamped. Chain of custody in black ink. On the periphery, have our key to radio at his shoulder, face turned away. Yolen didn't need to hear it to know. Narratives were being drafted. Alibis sewn, the cutter throttled up, bow shouldering weather. Garnet fell in behind, escort proud and stubborn. Kayla's drone crabbed sideways, framing the convoy. Survivor, witness boat. Police ribbon the wake. The corpsman slid the fore in. Warmth spread like a small sunrise through Jalen's forearm. His jaw unclenched for the first time since the drop. Why'd they do it? The junior coastie blurted, young enough to still expect reasons. Yolen stared past him at the seam where rain met land. Because I measured what they wanted buried. The coxswain's radio crackled. Sector base to Kestrel copy, viral live feed. DA requests you hold offshore 15 for escorted Pier arrival. Media present. Copy, the coxswain said. He glanced at Yolen. You ready to be seen? Yolen let the foil blanket ride up so the camera could read the cuff scars. I didn't swim to hide. The cutter turned her nose toward the inlet. Behind them, the rib fell back, small and suddenly ordinary in the gray. Ahead. The harbor opened like a mouth, about to speak. The cutter nosed through the inlet with the Garnet tucked in her wake, and Kayla's drone shadowing high. Sirens waited on shore, not blaring, just breathing blue and red washing the rain-polished pier. A thicket of cameras bristled behind a rope line. Cardboard signs lifted like sails. Truth floats. We see you, Jalen. Dock detail ready, the coxswain said. Pier 1. Yolen sat up under the foil, IV taped, wrists neatly bandaged, but visible. Let them see, he said, and the corpsman didn't argue. The cutter kissed the fenders. Lines went over. A gangway dropped. 2 people took the front of the receiving party. A district attorney investigator in a rain shell and a Coast Guard sector commander with bars that matched the weather. Flanking them, internal affairs plain suits, plain faces stood a pace back. Off to one side, the police union rep thumbed a phone, eyes already rehearsing outrage. Mr. Pierce, the investigator called. Voice carrying, we'll secure medical first. Then take your sworn statement aboard. Chain of custody is active. Yolen nodded. He stood slowly, blanket falling to his elbows so the cameras could read the cuff scars. Murmurs rippled through the crowd like wind through flags. The rib sidled into a lower berth down pier. Havar cut his engine, stepped up with a neutral face that didn't fit him. Subject interfered with the sector commander didn't turn. Sergeant, you'll address the investigator. Not my deck. Shout cut across the spray. Kayla, over here. A woman waved from the rope line. Kayla shouldered through with her tablet hugged to her chest, raincoat too big and determination bigger. I have the raw drone files, she told the investigator, voice shaking but clear. Time-stamped, GPS, tagged and mirrored to 3 clouds. The DA's eyes softened for half a blink. We'll log and image your device, then return it. Thank you. Cullis' chat erupted and little hearts marching up the screen. Stay strong, Queen. Save 2 IPFS. She breathed once. Steadying, a man in a torn watch cap pushed forward, necks broad-shouldered, smell of diesel and salt. Name's Ortiz, he said, fishing a micro SD from a zip bag. Trawler wheelhouse cam picked up a patrol boat dumping a guy at the channel. Edge at 0927. Didn't want trouble, but then I saw the stream. He looked at Yolen and lifted his chin. Figured trouble already found me. The investigator gloved up, bagged both card and tablet, scribbled times, made each witness sign the evidence seals. Chain of custody on paper, not promises. Haver moved closer, union rep at his shoulder. This is a circus, he muttered loud enough for mics. He jumped. Yolen stepped to the rail, rain slicking his eyebrows flat. His voice didn't rise. It rested on steel. You cuffed me, transported me outside the channel, and pushed me into a known shark corridor. I trained kids to trust rescue boats. You used one to kill? Murmur became a sound, became a chant that rolled the dock. Truth floats. Truth-floats. The sector commander lifted a hand. The chant softened. He turned to Haver. Sergeant, by request of the district attorney, your vessel is impounded pending forensic exam. Surrender your keys and firearm to internal affairs. For a beat, rain was the only applause. Haver's mouth did a contortion rage, looking for a doorway and found none. He handed over his weapon. The union rep's jaw worked like a broken clock. Kayla's drone dropped for a last. Low-frame Yalan on the rail, the sling mark across his chest. Beacon bagged on the deck with a label that read evidence. Her voice found its steadiness. Stream stays live until he's through the statement. She told thousands of strangers who had just become an audience with a stake. The investigator touched Jalen's elbow. Inside, Mr. Pierce. He glanced once at the crowd at Ortiz. At Kayla, at homemade signs wavering in the rain and then stepped onto the gangway. Behind him, the harbor finally started talking. Fluorescents hummed, rain ticking the window like a metronome. Yalen sat at a steel table, foil blanket traded for a gray sweatshirt, for capped. A recorder's red eye glowed. Across from him, investigator Dana Moore, legal pad ready. To her right, a Coast Guard JAG officer. Against the wall, 2 internal affairs detectives whose faces gave away nothing. For the record, Moore said, "State your name, Yalan Amir Pierce. Do you consent to an audio and video recording?" "Yes." Moore pressed a second button. "Begin," Yalan told it straight. Patrol Boat 17B. 3 officers. The stop that wasn't a stop. Cuffs without probable cause. The mile run outside the channel markers. The shove. The water. The sharks. The ladder. The garnet. The kestrel. He matched times to sky, tide, and the beacon's mob flag. He kept it simple. Verbs first, adjectives later. Moore slid a photo across the table, his wrists, raw and crochetted. "You recognize these injuries? From department cuffs?" "Double ratcheted. I trained with them." The JAG officer nodded once, making notes. "Your Coast Guard suits are current? Expired last year. Skills aren't." Internal Affairs leaned forward. "Mr. Pierce, did you at any point threaten officers aboard 17B?" "No." "Did you jump to evade arrest?" "No, I was pushed." Moore set down a small evidence bag. The beacon blinked inside, still stubbornly red. "Eyes confirms your mob at 10:13. Salvage." TUG Garnet logged visual at 10:26. Kayla. Nosu's drone stream started at 10:29. Ortiz's Wheelhouse SD shows a patrol launch at the channel edge at 9:27. Wheel sync clocks. "But the ark's clean." She tapped her pen. "Why would they do this to you?" Yalan held her gaze. "Because I measured their friends' spills. Because I didn't trade notes for favors. Because someone thought fear travels faster than truth." Moore let the quiet sit. "We recovered the harbor receipts folder from your house permits. Invoices, photos of sheen lines, video of nighttime tankers dumping outside legal zones. There's a name woven through subcontracts." She flipped the page. "Havar Marine Services, LLC?" Yalan felt the room tighten, not surprise, just confirmation. "Badge on weekdays. Side money on weekends." The door cracked. A tech stepped in with a tablet, whispered to Moore, and placed it between them. On screen, the GoPro clip from 17B accidentally left recording filled the frame. Wind, uniforms, deck, a voice, "Do it." A shove, spray, off-camera laughter. Another voice, lower, unmistakable. "No one's ever finding him out here." Moore didn't look away. This was recovered from a police locker after an anonymous tip. The chain holds. Internal Affairs stood. "That's enough for cuffs." Moore raised a hand. "Finish the statement first." "We do this by the book." Lon exhaled, something unclenching in his ribs. "Kayla saved me as much as the sling did. Witnesses saved you. In your training? In the ocean not wanting to keep you?" JAG officer slid a form over. "Victim Notification Program. Maritime Felony Assault. Sign here to opt in for updates." He signed. The pen trembled only once. The door opened again. A uniformed lieutenant leaned in. "Man press is stacked to the bulkhead." Moore clicked the recorder off. "One more thing, Mr. Pierce. When we step out there, do you want to speak, or should I?" Yalan looked at the window, at the rain thinning into a bright seam over the harbor. "I'll take the first sentence. You take the second." Moore smiled with her eyes. "Fair." Internal Affairs holstered their pens and opened the door fully. Down the hall, a camera light spilled across the floor like a runway. Jalen stood. His wrists didn't ache as much when he straightened. "Let's go say it where everyone can hear." They brought Havar out in cuffs at dusk. On the pier, cameras clicked like rain on tin. Moore read the charge. Is attempted murder, evidence tampering, conspiracy tied to illegal dumping. Ortiz stood behind the rope line, cap in hand. Kayla's drone hovered high, its little red eye steady. Yalan stepped to the microphones, sleeves rolled, scars unhidden. I didn't survive because I'm fearless, he said. I survived because strangers chose to see and because the truth floats. The crowd answered with a low, rising cheer. The DA promised a grand jury. The Coast Guard announced a joint task force on night dumping. Internal Affairs seized 17B for forensics. A buoy at the channel where Yalin held on got a new plaque. Truth floats. Later, lone by the water, Yalin pressed a hand to the cold rail and let the quiet reach him. The harbor smelled clean after the storm. He texted one line to Kayla, "Your lens changed the weather." She replied with a heart and a wave emoji. Somewhere offshore, the channel light winked its slow, stubborn green. "Surface," he whispered, and headed home. If this story moved you, be part of the change. Tell us where you're watching from. Drop Truth Floats in the comments to push it higher. Subscribe so these investigations keep reaching people who need them. Share this with someone who thinks their voice doesn't matter, because tonight proved it does.